In the 1970s, the food industry was booming and soup was one of the kings of the dinner table. Whether it came in a can, was mixed from a dry powder, or cooked from scratch, soup in the 1970s was not just food, it was culture. Today, many of these soups are forgotten, but they once held a special place in American households, reflecting a time of comfort, innovation, and change in the nation's eating habits. Here are 8 legendary soups from the 1970s that evoke nostalgia, memories, and a taste of the past that few remember today. Number 1, Campbell's Pepper Pot Soup. Campbell's Pepper Pot Soup was once a culinary staple in the American household, widely known for its distinctive, bold flavors and hearty ingredients. This soup was a thick, peppery, meat-based broth made with diced tripe, potatoes, and vegetables, seasoned heavily with black pepper and spices. Originally inspired by a traditional Caribbean dish, this soup was often referred to as the Philadelphia Pepper Pot, linking it to an 18th century recipe that was said to have been created to sustain the Continental Army during the harsh winter of 1777 to 1778. It was a warm, robust dish meant to fill you up and keep you going, and its unique flavor set it apart from other soups on the market. Campbell's iteration of pepper pot soup brought this historical dish into the homes of Americans throughout the 20th century, making it more accessible and convenient. It was sold as part of the Campbell's Hearty Soups line and was a popular choice for those looking for something beyond the typical chicken noodle or tomato soup. The use of tripe, a type of cow's stomach lining, gave the soup an unusual but rich taste and chewy texture, which was beloved by many who grew up eating it. Despite its loyal fan base, changing tastes and dietary preferences eventually led to the decline in popularity of pepper pot soup. By the 1980s, consumers were moving away from canned soups that used less common ingredients like tripe, preferring flavors that were milder and more familiar. Additionally, concerns about sodium content, preservatives, and processed foods also contributed to its disappearance from Campbell's offerings. The soup had a complex flavor, heavily influenced by black pepper, which added a strong spicy heat uncommon in canned soups of its time. Although it was discontinued by Campbell's, some people today still attempt to recreate the original flavor and experience of pepper pot soup through homemade recipes, keeping the memory of this once famous soup alive. Number 2, Campbell's Scotch Broth Soup. Campbell's Scotch Broth Soup was inspired by traditional Scottish cuisine, offering a hearty, robust flavor that stood out among other canned soups of the 20th century. It was made with a base of lamb and beef broth, with the addition of barley, carrots, onions, and other root vegetables, creating a thick and nourishing soup. The key ingredient that defined Scotch broth was the inclusion of barley, which provided a chewy texture and a subtle nutty flavor, elevating it beyond the typical smooth or creamy canned soups of the time. This made the soup unique, appealing to those who wanted something more filling and wholesome, especially during the colder months when hearty soups were in high demand. Lamb, a somewhat unusual ingredient for canned soups, gave Scotch broth a distinct savory taste. The use of lamb and beef stock contributed to a complex flavor profile that was earthy and slightly gamey, giving a nod to its Scottish origins, where lamb was more commonly consumed. The vegetables were cooked to a tender consistency, blending with the broth to create a stew-like texture. This made the soup versatile. It could be enjoyed as a standalone dish or paired with bread or crackers for a more complete meal. During the height of its popularity in the 1970s, Campbell's Scotch Broth Soup was seen as a hearty, nutritious option, appealing to consumers who sought comforting, traditional flavors. However, over time, the soup's popularity waned due to shifting consumer preferences and the declining appeal of lamb as a mainstream protein in America. The soup's rich flavor and texture were seen as somewhat old-fashioned by the 1980s, leading to its eventual discontinuation. However, its memory lingers on among those who remember its unique taste and the warmth it brought on a cold day. Number 3, Lipton Onion Soup Mix. Lipton Onion Soup mix became a kitchen sensation in the mid-20th century, peaking in the 1970s as a versatile and indispensable ingredient in American cooking. More than just a soup base, it was celebrated for its ability to enhance the flavor of a wide range of dishes. A dry powder blend of onion, salt, and various spices. This mix became famous not only for making quick, flavorful onion soup, but also for its role as a seasoning agent in countless recipes. The mix gained popularity largely due to its simplicity and robust flavor. Adding it to dishes like meatloaf, roasted potatoes, casseroles, burgers, and chicken imparted a savory depth that was hard to achieve with fresh ingredients alone. One of its most iconic uses was as a key ingredient in the classic California dip, also known as French onion dip, which became a party staple across America. The recipe was simple: mix the soup powder with sour cream, and within minutes, you had a creamy, savory dip that paired perfectly with potato chips and veggies. This easy-to-make dip became an instant favorite for entertaining, from family gatherings to cocktail parties, and it helped cement the Lipton Onion Soup mix as a beloved pantry item. Another notable use was as a seasoning for roasted meats and vegetables. Home cooks found that sprinkling the mix over a roast or tossing it with potatoes before baking added a rich, umami flavor. The soup mix provided a convenient way to add both seasoning and moisture, creating dishes that were tender and full of flavor. Over time, its popularity led to recipe cards, cookbooks, and advertisements, showcasing the mix as a multifunctional ingredient. The appeal of Lipton Onion Soup mix stemmed from the era's emphasis on quick, convenient cooking with bold flavors. While its popularity has diminished somewhat as cooking trends have shifted towards fresh ingredients and less processed seasonings, it still holds nostalgic value and continues to be used in certain classic recipes today. Number 4, Campbell's Bean with Bacon Soup. Campbell's Bean with Bacon Soup became a comfort food classic in the mid-20th century and maintained popularity through the 1970s due to its smoky flavor, thick texture, and affordable price. This soup was a staple in many American households, beloved for its rich and savory blend of navy beans, crispy bits of bacon, and a tomato-based broth that created a hearty yet smooth consistency. The beans provided a creamy and slightly nutty base, while the bacon added a smoky depth that appealed to those looking for a warming, flavorful dish that could be ready in minutes. It stood out from other soups of the era due to its balance of sweet and salty notes, enhanced by a tomato broth that gave the soup a distinctively rich and tangy undertone. During the 1970s, Campbell's Bean with Bacon Soup was also seen as versatile. It was used not only as a soup, but also as a base for casseroles and even pasta dishes. It was perfect for stretching a budget, as it could be served with a slice of bread or crackers for a filling meal, fitting in with the era's focus on simplicity and family dining. The soup's hearty composition meant it could serve as both a lunch option or a light dinner, making it a go-to for busy families. The bacon bits, although rehydrated in the canned process, managed to retain a chewy texture that mimicked freshly cooked bacon, enhancing the soup's appeal. The soup's popularity began to wane as dietary preferences shifted, with many consumers seeking lower sodium, healthier options. Additionally, changing views on processed foods contributed to its decline in popularity. However, for those who grew up in the 60s and 70s, Bean with Bacon Soup remains a nostalgic reminder of simpler home-cooked meals that centered on flavor and comfort. Number 5, Tomato Rice Soup. Tomato rice soup was a comforting favorite in many households during the 1970s, appreciated for its warm, hearty consistency and tangy flavor. This soup combined a smooth tomato base with plump grains of rice, creating a balanced texture that felt both rich and filling without being overly heavy. The tomato broth was mildly seasoned with herbs and spices, delivering a slightly sweet and acidic taste that paired perfectly with the rice's subtle starchiness. This simple yet flavorful combination made it particularly appealing for families looking for a quick lunch or light dinner option that could be served on its own or as an accompaniment to a sandwich or salad. One of the reasons tomato rice soup stood out was its versatility. It could be enjoyed plain or with added toppings like a sprinkle of cheese, fresh herbs, or even a dash of hot sauce for those who preferred a spicier kick. In many kitchens, this soup was also a base to which leftover vegetables or meats could be added, creating a variety of quick meals and minimizing food waste. For kids, it provided a palatable introduction to soup, as the simple ingredients and familiar flavors made it an easy favorite. In an era when quick and convenient meals were paramount, tomato rice soup offered the warmth of a home-cooked dish without the lengthy preparation time. Its popularity was also tied to its status as a comfort food that could easily be paired with other dishes, like grilled cheese or crusty bread, to make a complete and satisfying meal. While similar versions still exist today, the specific combination of rice and a rich tomato broth as seen in the 70s is less common, having been overshadowed by other variations and modern tastes that favor fresher, lower sodium options. Number 6, golden mushroom soup. Golden mushroom soup was a unique offering from Campbell's that distinguished itself from the more traditional, cream-based mushroom soups. It featured a tomato and beef broth base instead of a cream foundation, which created a rich, deep flavor that was both savory and slightly tangy. The soup contained sliced mushrooms, giving it a meaty texture and providing a contrast to the typical smoothness of other mushroom soups. The use of a tomato-based broth instead of cream also gave it a golden hue, which is how it got its name, and a more intense flavor profile, making it a versatile option for a variety of dishes. This soup wasn't just enjoyed on its own, but was also a popular ingredient for home-cooked meals throughout the 60s and 70s. It was frequently used in recipes for sauces, gravies, and especially casseroles. The combination of its robust beef and tomato flavor with mushrooms made it ideal for adding depth to beef dishes like pot roasts or meatloaf, as it easily enhanced the savory quality of meats and brought a rich, hearty taste to the table. Its thicker consistency made it a perfect binder for dishes, providing moisture and flavor without overwhelming the other ingredients. Golden mushroom soup also became a favorite for its ability to transform basic dishes into something special with minimal effort. By simply adding it to a skillet with meat, vegetables, or pasta, home cooks could quickly create a flavorful sauce or gravy. This convenience was a big part of its appeal, as it fit well into the busy lifestyle of families who needed quick, delicious meals without the time-consuming prep work. While it has largely fallen out of favor in modern cooking, overshadowed by homemade or more health-conscious options, its golden color, rich flavor, and versatility are still remembered fondly by those who enjoyed it in its heyday. Number 7, Campbell's Cream of Shrimp Soup. Campbell's Cream of Shrimp Soup was a unique and versatile product that brought the delicate flavor of seafood into everyday American cooking. Unlike most other soups on the market at the time, it offered a creamy base with a rich shrimp flavor, making it an ideal shortcut for those who wanted to add a touch of luxury to their dishes without the hassle of preparing fresh seafood. It had a smooth, velvety texture and was used not only as a soup, but also as a key ingredient in a variety of recipes, including seafood casseroles, bisques, and pasta dishes, adding both depth and a mild, sweet shrimp taste. The soup was especially popular in the 1960s and 1970s when convenience cooking was at its height. Home cooks often used Campbell's Cream of Shrimp Soup as a sauce base for baked seafood, turning simple shrimp, crab, or even fish dishes into elegant meals by simply pouring the soup over the protein before baking. This ease of use made it particularly popular for dinner parties or holiday meals, where the aim was to serve something with a gourmet flair. The soup's versatility also allowed it to be mixed with rice, vegetables, or even other soups to create layered dishes full of flavor. One of the reasons this soup stood out was its ability to create a creamy, seafood-infused flavor without being overpowering. The shrimp taste was subtle enough to blend well with a variety of seasonings, making it a flexible addition to both classic seafood dishes and inventive, quick-fix meals. While it is no longer widely available, it remains a fond memory for those who once enjoyed its convenience and taste. Today, many retro cooks and fans of vintage recipes continue to seek out ways to recreate the creamy texture and delicate shrimp flavor that made Campbell's cream of shrimp soup a favorite during its time. Number 8. Manhandler soups, chunky soups. Manhandler soups, which later evolved into the chunky soups line, were a groundbreaking product introduced by Campbell's in the 1960s and 1970s, aimed at satisfying appetites with a heartier, meatier option than typical canned soups. Branded with a distinctly masculine name, these soups were marketed as filling meals that eat like a stew, targeting men and those looking for a more substantial soup experience. The idea was to provide a thick, chunky consistency packed with large pieces of meat, vegetables, and potatoes, unlike the traditional thin, brothy soups available at the time. One of the standout features of Manhandler soups was their wide range of flavors, focusing on hearty, classic comfort foods such as sirloin burger, beef and barley, and hearty chicken and dumplings. Each variety was designed to be filling enough to serve as a complete meal, with chunks of real beef, chicken, or turkey, alongside generous portions of potatoes, carrots, and beans. This was an innovative step in canned soup production, as it deviated from the common purees, or light soups that dominated supermarket shelves, offering instead a stew-like consistency that was both satisfying and nourishing. The branding emphasized convenience and sustenance, tapping into the needs of busy families, working individuals, and those seeking a quick microwavable meal that didn't sacrifice flavor or heartiness. It resonated particularly well with men who may have been cooking for themselves for the first time or needed a quick filling option after a long workday. The bold, savory flavors and chunky textures were intended to mimic homemade soups or stews, offering a sense of nostalgia and comfort. Though the Manhandler branding eventually evolved into the more inclusive, chunky soups, the concept of a thick, hearty soup meal remains popular. Campbell's continues to produce variations based on the original formula, and the product has inspired many other brands to produce their own take on a filling, chunky canned soup.